I came across Big Fork Brands recently, and it's become one of those finds you actually want to tell people about, and you don't find that often. Okay. They're doing bacon sausage, plus these really solid pork jerky snacks and Chicago style sauces. Basically, upgrade anything you throw them on burgers, hot dogs, fries, throw it on there. It works.
But I bet it's packed full of junk.
Actually, it's made with clean ingredients and real care. That's small batch with no shortcuts, and people are obsessed with the flavor. You can go over to bigforkbrands.com, use our code INFOGO at checkout, and get 20% off anything on the site.
You can find the link and our code in the show notes. Welcome to the podcast. I'm William,
And I'm Kat,
and that makes this Info on the Go.
feeding your curiosity everywhere you go.
Absolutely love it. Info on the Go. And today we're talking about the birth of the internet. Before Wi-Fi, before smartphones, we're going back even before Google. Because connecting to the internet meant, well, listening to a machine struggle to link you to the outside world, which is what you heard at the beginning of this episode. Just a little piece of nostalgia for you there. It wasn't instant, and it certainly wasn't seamless. It was slow, sometimes frustrating, and yet, at the time, it felt revolutionary.
Picture it. You're sitting in front of a bulky desktop computer in a quiet room at home. You click to connect, and then you wait. The computer uses your home's telephone line to dial out, reaching across miles of infrastructure to connect to another system. During that time, your phone line is completely tied up. No incoming calls, no picking up the receiver. If someone does, even briefly, the connection drops, and you have to start all over again.
All over again.
And when we talk about bulky computers, all right, they had gigantic computer desks for a reason.
I mean, think of the floor model TV versus the TV you have hanging on your wall. That's literally what we're talking about. That's
I
the
mean, and they
best.
all made noise.
Oh, they did. And they were loud too.
They were loud. It was like a jet engine taking off.
But you know what? Patience wasn't optional when it came to dialing up to the internet. It could take a minute or two just to establish a connection. And once you were online, everything moved at a crawl. Well, pages didn't just appear, they slowly loaded. Often line by line, images revealed themselves piece by piece. Even the simplest task, like sending an email or opening a basic website, it required time. But despite the delays, there was something remarkable happening. For the first time, an ordinary home computer could reach far beyond itself, connecting to a growing network of information and people.
So, how did we get here? I mean, how do we go from isolated machines sitting alone on desks to a world where billions of devices are connected instantly through invisible signals? Now, to understand that, we have to go back. Before the slow connections, before home computers, even before the first network existed. Because internet didn't start with cables or code. It's just started with an idea.
Absolutely. Long before the first modem ever connected a home computer to the outside world, the idea of a global network was already taking shape. So, in the mid 20th century, computers were powerful for the first time, but they were also completely isolated. Each machine operated on its own. It was not connected, it was like an island. If you wanted to share information, it often meant physically transporting data with magnetic tapes, punch cards, or printed documents from one place to another. There was no instant communication, no shared digital space, and certainly no concept of logging into a system halfway across the world.
But a few forward thinking individuals began to imagine something different. One of the most important among them was J.C.R. Licklider, a psychologist and computer scientist who saw computers not just as calculation tools, but as communication devices. In the early 1960s, Lidlaker proposed a bold and almost science fiction like idea that he called the Intergalactic Computer Network. Despite the name, his vision was grounded in a very real possibility: a globally interconnected set of computers that could allow people to access data and programs from anywhere in the world.
And Licklider, he imagined a future where information wasn't locked inside a single machine, but where information could flow freely between systems, where researchers, governments, and eventually everyday people could collaborate, share knowledge, and communicate instantly across vast distances. At a time when computers filled entire rooms and had less processing power than today's smartphone, this idea was nothing short of revolutionary.
The urgency behind this vision was also shaped by the realities of the era. The world was deep in the Cold War, a period defined by tension between global superpowers and the constant fear of nuclear conflict. One major concern was the vulnerability of communication systems. Traditional networks relied on centralized points. If those were destroyed in an attack, entire regions could be cut off from information. What was needed was a system that could survive disruption, one that could reroute information dynamically and continue functioning even if parts of it were damaged.
Still, there was a fundamental obstacle standing in the way because early computers, they weren't designed to communicate with one another at all. They used different hardware, different programming languages, and different modes of operation. Even if you physically connected them, they wouldn't necessarily understand each other. And the challenge wasn't just about building more advanced machines, it was about finding a way to connect them into a unified system. Because in the end, the real breakthrough wouldn't come from making computers bigger or faster, it would come from making them be able to talk to one another.
As the idea of a connected world began to take shape, the next step was turning theory into reality, and that responsibility fell to the U.S. government agency known as the ARPA, later named DARPA, created in response to the pressures of the Cold War. ARPA's mission was to fund bold, high risk research that could ensure technological superiority. Among its many projects was one that would quietly change the world: building a network that could link computers together, even across great distances.
That project became known as ARPANET, ARPANET. And it introduced a concept that was radically different from traditional communication systems. Up to that point, most communication, like telephone calls, they relied on dedicated, continuous connection between 2 points. If that connection was broken, the communication stopped completely. ARPANET, however, used something new called packet switching. Instead of sending information as one complete stream, data was broken into smaller pieces called packets. These packets could travel independently across different routes and then be reassembled at their destination. It was faster, more efficient, and more importantly, far more resilient.
By the late 1960s, ARPANET was ready for its first real test. In 1969, engineers attempted to send a simple message between two computers, one at UCLA and another at the Stanford Research Institute. The plan was to type the word login, but after the first two letters, L and O, the system crashed. It was a small, almost humorous failure, but also a historic moment. Those two letters, LO, became the first message ever sent across what would eventually evolve into the internet.
From there, the network began to grow. More universities and research institutions joined, including places like UCLA, Stanford, UC Santa Barbara, and the University of Utah. These early nodes formed the foundation of a network that allowed researchers to share data, run programs remotely, and collaborate in ways that had never been possible before. What started as a government experiment was quickly providing its value as a tool for communication and innovation.
As ARPANET expanded and new networks began to appear around the world, a major challenge quickly became clear. These networks were being built in different ways, using different technologies, and they didn't naturally communicate with one another. And it was as if each network spoke its own language, effective on its own, but unable to connect with others. If the vision of a truly global system was going to become reality, something had to unify them.
That solution came from two pioneering computer scientists, Vint Cerf and Bob Kahn. In the 1970s, they developed a set of rules that would fundamentally change how computers communicate. This system became known as TCP/IP, Transmission Control Protocol and Internet Protocol. Rather than relying on a single network design, TCP/IP created a universal standard that allowed completely different networks to link together and function as one.
At its core, TCP/IP works in a surprisingly simple way. When you send information, whether it's a message, a file, or a request to load a web page, the data is broken into small packets. Each packet is labeled with important information, including where it came from and where it's going. These packets then travel across multiple networks, sometimes taking entirely different paths to reach the same destination. Once they arrive, TCP ensures that all the packets are accounted for and reassembled in the correct order, while IP handles the addressing and routing that gets them there in the first place. It's a system designed for flexibility and resilience, able to adapt even if parts of the network go down.
This breakthrough led to a defining moment in internet history. On January 1st, 1983, ARPANET officially adopted TCP/IP as its standard protocol. This event is often referred to as the birth of the modern internet because it marked the point where separate networks could finally intersect seamlessly, forming a true network of networks.
With this common language in place, the possibilities expanded rapidly. No longer limited by compatibility issues, new networks could join, communicate, and grow alongside existing ones. What had once been a collection of isolated or loosely connected systems was now becoming something much larger and more unified. Now that computers could speak the same language, the network could grow.
With a universal communication system finally in place, the network, well, it began to expand beyond its original purpose. What started as a Cold War driven military and research project, well, it was gradually opening up to a wider academic community. A key turning point came with the involvement of the National Science Foundation, which helped fund and develop a new backbone for connectivity known as NSFNET, introduced in the mid 1980s. This really helped link universities and research institutions across the United States, dramatically increasing access to networked computing and laying the groundwork for a broader expansion.
As more colleges, laboratories, and organizations connected, the network grew not just in size, but in usefulness. One of the earliest and most impactful applications to emerge during this time was email. What began as a simple way for researchers to leave messages for one another quickly evolved into one of the most popular uses of the network. For the first time, people could send written communication across vast distances in seconds, fundamentally changing how information and ideas were shared.
And back in our day, email was like text messages are today. Wouldn't
I
you
bet
agree?
it was revolutionary.
Yeah. Despite this growth, the internet of the 1980s was still far from what we recognize today. It was almost entirely text-based, with no images, no videos, and no user-friendly interfaces. Navigating it required technical knowledge, and most interactions were done through command lines and complex systems that only trained users could operate comfortably. There were no search engines, no social media, and no easy way for the average person to explore what was out there. In many ways, it was powerful, but hidden, existing mostly in academic and professional circles. So, for most people, the internet still didn't exist. But that was about to change, and I say we take a small break before that change happens.
Sounds good to me.
Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Have you thought about what you're getting your mom for Mother's Day? At Cozy Earth, they have a full line of apparel, PJs, shirts, socks, you name it, they have it. And if you buy any of their bedding, they have a 100-night sleep trial and a 10-year warranty, free shipping on orders over $50 or more. And our listeners get an exclusive discount of 21% off just by using our code INFOGO at checkout. And you can do that at cozyearth.com. Find the link and the code in the show notes. If you're laying mulch, bedding animals, covering seeds, or just want your property looking right, there's one name you need to know. Irwin Farms, Middle Georgia's #1 wheat straw provider. When it comes to quality wheat straw, it matters. Clean, consistent, and ready to work because they don't cut corners, they bale it. Whether you're a homeowner, gardener, farmer, or you're just getting your hands dirty for the first time, they've got you covered. You can find a link in the show notes. Just Google Middle Georgia's #1 wheat straw provider. Either way, you'll find Irwin Farms.
All right, now that we're back. By the late 1980s, the internet was growing, but it was still difficult to use and largely hidden from the general public. That began to change thanks to a British computer scientist named Tim Berners-Lee. While working at CERN, he saw a problem. Researchers around the world had valuable information stored on different systems, but there was no simple way to access or link it together. His solution would transform the internet from a technical tool into something anyone could use.
Barnes-Lee created a system that allowed information to be organized and accessed through linked pages. At the heart of the system were three key innovations. First was HTML, or Hypertext Markup Language, which provided a way to structure and display content on a page. Second was HTTP, the Hypertext Transfer Protocol, which allowed computers to request and deliver those pages across the network. And third was the first web browser, a program that let users navigate this new space just by clicking on links instead of typing complex commands. Together, these tools formed what we would now call the World Wide Web.
It's important to understand that the internet and the World Wide Web are not the same thing. The internet is the underlying network, the infrastructure of connected computers and systems. The World Wide Web, on the other hand, is a way of accessing and organizing information on that network through websites and links. In simple terms, the internet is the highway, and the web is the system of roads, signs, and destinations that make it usable.
And in 1991, Barnsley launched the first website, making his system publicly available. It wasn't flashy, just a simple page explaining what the web was and how to use it. But its impact was enormous. For the first time, the internet became visual, navigatable, and far more intuitive. You no longer needed specialized knowledge to explore it. You could just simply point and click and discover.
And that shift changed everything. What had once been a text heavy, command driven environment used mostly by researchers was suddenly becoming accessible to ordinary people. Information could be shared more easily, ideas could spread faster, and the potential audience expanded beyond universities and government labs to the general public. Now, the internet wasn't just for scientists, it was for everyone.
So let's get into that dial up era. As the internet began reaching into homes in the 1990s, most people experienced it through what was known as dial up. And that was what you heard at the beginning of this episode. Unlike today's always on connections, right? Dial up internet relied on existing telephone lines. Your computer would, well, quite literally dial a number to connect to an internet server provider, creating a temporary link between your home and the wider network. It was a clever use of existing infrastructure, but it came with trade-offs. That defined an entire era of early internet use. That cat and I think my experience is probably a lot different than yours.
Yeah,
Did you
yeah.
ever
See,
have to go get the little disk to be able to load it into your computer that would set up the internet for you?
me, no. I don't remember my mom doing that either. See, we had an e-machine.
Well, you're about to talk about those little disks.
I don't know if I seen one, I may vaguely remember what it is, but I couldn't have told you what it did. Okay, I just remember the dial-up tone. And then my mom, like, who's calling?
Well,
Why is somebody calling right now?
in this episode, bring when we were looking at the intro, that sound was so nostalgic. It just brought back so many memories for me.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. One of the most recognizable names of the era was AOL, which helped introduce millions of people to the internet. Its simple interface and widespread distribution of free trial CDs made it accessible to beginners, and its iconic notification
You've got mail.
became part of everyday culture. Other early providers like CompuServe and Prodigy also played major roles in bringing people online, each offering their own portals, services, and communities.
I think out of all of those, AOL was probably the most prominent one.
Yeah, we had AOL.
Yeah. I knew some people though
Oh,
that had
I'm sorry. Now I remember the box that said AOL on it with
the
like
little
the
disc that you'd have to.
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And you had to have that little disc inserted to get to the internet.
I didn't know that part.
Yeah. Well, and it changed after time. You bought a subscription and anyway, that's too many memories. Um, and as those communities, well, this is where the magic really happened. For the first time, people from different cities, states, and even countries could interact in real time. Chat rooms became gathering places where strangers could talk, debate, and form friendships. Message boards and early forums allowed users to share ideas, hobbies, and interests, really laying the groundwork for the social internet that we all know today. It was a new kind of connection, one not limited by geography. And I remember those chat rooms. They would get pretty wild sometimes.
There was reasons my mom did not allow me to do certain things on the computer.
She was smart because yeah, some of those chat rooms were they were out there.
Anyway, no, I remember The Sims, and I wasn't actually allowed to play that one by myself, but I played behind my mom and told her what I wanted her to do or whatever. Not that she ever listened, I guess, but I thought I was having a fun time.
I
But
used
then
to
there was
play. There was some, cause no, it wasn't casino, but there was some game where you could play like different games, and you could play with people all over the world, and it had different chat forums in it, and sometimes yeah, they could get crazy.
yeah, the closest I got was the Hoyle Kids games, and that just had computer players that talked smack to you the whole time. They really did on certain games. So if anybody knows what that is, I've been trying to. I don't want to download it from the internet because that just gives me a PTSD from LimeWire. But I would like to find a copy of that. Yep, but dial up had its frustrations. Images loaded slowly, often appearing in pieces over several seconds or even minutes. Videos were rare and difficult to stream. Boy, was it.
Mhm.
Connections could drop without warning, forcing you to reconnect and start over. It wasn't smooth and it certainly wasn't fast, but it was
And
transformative.
yeah, and don't let anybody pick up the phone while you're on the internet, because you're
Yeah.
gonna drop it.
Yeah. There was who's calling? And usually it was my grandma, and she was then like, what is she calling about?
If it's important, they'll call back.
Yes, essentially. I think I answered one time because I was excited, and boy, was she upset. Because despite its limitations, dial up opened the door. It brought the internet out of universities and offices and into everyday homes, giving millions their first taste of a connected world. It may seem primitive now, but dial up was the doorway to a digital revolution.
But why does all this really matter? Because what followed the dial-up era was nothing short of transformation that reshaped nearly every aspect of modern life. The internet evolved from a slow, limited connection into a powerful, always-on global system that really changed how we communicate, work, learn, and entertain ourselves. Communication became instant and far-reaching. Email gave way to messaging, video calls, and social platforms that allow people to connect well across continents in real time. Businesses were no longer confined by physical location. Companies could operate online, reach global markets, and even exist entirely in the digital space. Entire industries were created, from e-commerce to digital marketing, fundamentally changing the economy forever.
Entertainment was revolutionized as well. What once required physical media like books, CDs, DVDs became instantly accessible. Floppy disks,
Oh yeah,
okay,
floppy disk, yeah.
man, became instantly accessible through streaming, downloads, and online platforms. Music, movies, games, and news could all be delivered directly to a screen in seconds. Education followed a similar path, with online courses, virtual classrooms, and vast libraries of information becoming available to anyone with an internet connection. Knowledge, once limited by geography or access, became more open and widespread than ever before.
This transformation was driven by a shift in technology. Dial-up communications were gradually replaced by broadband, offering faster speeds and more reliable service. And then Wi Fi removed the need for physical connections, allowing devices to connect wirelessly from almost anywhere within range. And then came mobile internet, putting the power of the web into your pocket and that little smartphone that you're carrying around. The internet was no longer something you logged into. It became something that was always with you, always on, and always accessible. That's
But
sad.
looking, it's kind of creepy.
Well, I mean, think about it. You went from being, you know, not really so connected and you could have some privacy. Now everybody's so connected that you really don't have any downtime sometimes.
Right. Now, looking back, it's remarkable to consider how it all began. What started as a Cold War experiment designed to solve a specific problem of communication and resilience grew into the backbone of modern life. It now connects billions of people, supports global economies, and shapes how we experience the world every day.
It raises an interesting question. What would the world look like if the internet had never been created? Would communication still be limited by distance?
Would information remain harder to access, or would something else have taken its place? It's difficult to imagine because the internet hasn't just changed the world, it's become a fundamental part of it.
In closing, I think back to that early dial up, the long wait, the clicks, the slow navigation between machines just to get connected. Now today, you just walk over and turn your computer on and boom, or your smartphone. What once took minutes and now happens in less than the blink of an eye.
And yet, behind the seamless experience, the internet still carries some surprisingly strange details. For example, over 90% of all internet traffic today is actually automated, generated not by people, but by bots, data systems, and algorithms constantly communicating in the background. Even more surprising, the first ever online webcam wasn't used for security or communication. It was set up at the University of Cambridge just to check whether a coffee pot in a break room was empty. And despite how modern it feels, the very first website ever created is still online today, preserved like a digital fossil from 1991.
We've got to do one on that webcam because that's actually kind of funny. There are even parts of the internet that are essentially unreachable to most users, the so-called deep web, which is estimated to be hundreds of times larger than the surface web that we use every day. And somewhere in all of this, data travels across thousands of miles of undersea cables, with more than 95% of global internet traffic actually moving through lines laid across the ocean floor, really connecting all of us together, and it's laying beneath the waves.
From a few connected machines to billions of people online, the internet didn't just change the world, it became it.
Yeah. And I've never heard of that machine you were talking about, the e-web
E-machine?
e-machine. What was that like? It's like a computer you plugged in and it was already there? Or?
It was a type of computer kind of similar to a Dell.
Oh, okay, okay. I was gonna say, I remember when broadband came out because we had it installed in my house, and it was basically just essentially was just another telephone line.
No, the E-machine was like a specific computer. We had it for the longest time. I mean, up until probably 2012, like, and we had it in the 90s
You know,
or early 2000s.
Dell was the big brand, and HP was like, I guess they were competitors, but Dell was like the brand everybody had. And then somehow or another, Dell went away and HP took over. But anyway, Cad, that's pretty much all I've got on this.
Me too. If you would like to support this podcast, tell a friend and help get the word out.
If you would like to help us keep the show going, you can do so by taking advantage of some of our sponsors or at Patreon. Either way it goes, the links are in the show notes.
And as always, William and I want to thank you for listening.
Whether you've been with us from day one or just tuned in, thank you.
You can join the Facebook group at Info on the Go
Over there, you can share with us your show ideas.
or ask us a question.
But whatever you do, make sure you hit that follow button wherever you're listening to this podcast.
Send us a text using the link in the show notes or leave a review.
And leaving that review really does help the algorithm help others find us. But if you would like to email Kat and I directly, you can do so at
infoonthegopodcast@gmail.com.
You've got mail.
and all of that is in the show notes. Till next time.
Stay curious.
If your stomach's been off lately, like bloating, reflux, or just not feeling right, there's a simpler way to get back on track.
With Professor B's Digestive Aid, which is an all natural blend of pure honey and ancient apitherapy, a herb rooted in Roman tradition. You know how at least they had some things right? It's designed to gently support and balance your digestion.
No long ingredient list, no harsh additives, just two powerful, time tested ingredients working together. It's even the same formula used to help cancer patients manage digestive discomfort.
And right now, you can get an exclusive 10% off any product. Just use our code INFOGO at checkout.